Welcome to the Brand and Market Podcast, where branding clarity meets marketing strategy. I'm your host, Allie Haney, founder of Brand and Market, a boutique agency dedicated to helping small businesses craft intentional brands and effective marketing plans. Each week, I share practical tips and insights to help you, especially those of you in real estate-related industries, build a standout brand to attract your brand's biggest fans. Let's dive in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. I am Allie Haney, and I am your host. Today's episode is all about one of my all-time favorite music artists, Morgan Wallen. I'm actually sitting here recording this episode in my Morgan Wallen t-shirt, and at the time of the airing of this episode, we will be headed to Gulf Shores, Alabama, to see him at his very first ever music festival, the Sand in My Boots Music Festival in Gulf Shores, Alabama. So we are, well, I say we, definitely me, and most of the time my husband, diehard Morgan Wallen music fans. First, I want to jump in with a little bit of story time because without knowing like my personal connection to Morgan Wallen, it's kind of hard to understand why I would be so just, a diehard fan of his. I didn't even really know who Morgan Wallen was until we had our first son in 2020. So Jack was born in September 2020, and he was one of those babies that he didn't really sleep well. He was restless for about the first year of his life, and some days the only way I could get him to go to sleep was to play the Morgan Wallen vinyl and just sit there and sway with him during the day, during the night, didn't matter what time of day it was. That was the only way I could get that boy to go to sleep. That was a season in our life where we were commuting back and forth from Kentucky, where we lived, back to Virginia, because I was still shooting weddings as a photographer back in Virginia. And there were times where it was an 8-hour drive with no stops. And he would just be screaming in the back seat. It was just time for him to go to sleep for a nap, and he couldn't go to sleep. And lo and behold, I would turn Morgan Wallen on, and within 2 songs, that boy would be out. I don't know what it is about Morgan Wallen's voice, but Jack was very susceptible to just being soothed by it. Then come our third child, our second son. He too was not the best sleeper, especially during the day. And at that point, we had Miss Laura, our nanny doesn't really feel like the right term. Babysitter's definitely not the right term. She was basically like my little sister, a member of our family, but she was the one that came and watched our kids 3 days a week. She said, well, playing Morgan Wallen on vinyl for Jack works. You think it'll work for Emerson? I'm like, I hope so. So one day she just did the experiment. She sat there and rocked Emerson to Morgan Wallen, and finally he went to sleep after hours, what felt like hours at least, trying to get that boy to go to sleep. So Morgan got me through a couple of really tough postpartum periods. And I know that sounds kind of silly, but when your baby won't sleep and you find something that will help them sleep, you will do that thing. And so we had Morgan Wallen on Spotify. We had Morgan Wallen in the truck. We had Morgan Wallen on vinyl. Anywhere we could get Morgan Wallen, we had him. And no joke, still to this day, every year when we get our Spotify Wrapped report, we're always in the top 0.1% of Morgan Wallen listeners, because pretty much anytime we're in the car, I have a whole playlist that's called All Morgan, and it is his entire discography. Just we play it on shuffle almost every single time we're in the car. So he is still an everyday part of our life. And we are very, very excited to be able to go and see him in Gulf Shores for his first annual Sand in My Boots Music Festival. A couple of other Morgan Wallen stories. Funny enough, I have multiple of them. Morgan Wallen was on his world tour for the One Thing at a Time tour back in 2021, I believe. He ended, or maybe 22, don't know the date on that, but he ended up going hoarse. He got sick and was not able to sing. So he had to postpone a couple of his tour dates, one of which was in Virginia Beach, Virginia. So I'm originally from Charlottesville, Virginia. We did not have tickets to the Virginia Beach show at the time that it got postponed. However, fast forward to when his postponement date was about a year, I believe, after the original tour date. And we had moved back to Virginia from Kentucky. And it was right after the very first ESC conference. So Cassie now lives in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and she was my business partner at the time. And she said, we haven't been able to pay ourselves for the last year and a half of being able to put this conference on. So, what do you think about going to the Morgan Wallen concert as like our celebratory? We made it through ESC year number one. And I was like, are you serious? Like, you are speaking my love language. Cassie and I got tickets. Caleb got to be a third wheel on on our date to Morgan Wallen, and it was lovely. I loved every minute of it. Every minute of it that I remember. Oh, that's bad to admit, but there were times that I just remember I was sitting there in tears and I was just excited to be there to witness a man that had helped us through our my postpartum period, and just vividly remember, and maybe it's because Cassie took a video of me, but she took a video of me during the song Thought You Should Know, and that song is a mother, it's like a tribute to his mother. I just remember tearing up at that moment. And like in my mind, that was not even, if you asked me to list my top 10 Morgan Wallen songs, Thought You Should Know would not be on the top 10. And that was the one that I had the most like emotional reaction to. So that tells you anything about that strong tie to that postpartum period when those hormones were raging, then I don't know what does. It was just a magical event that was celebrating a very long, hardworking year and a half that led up to the ESC conference. And if you don't know what the ESC conference is, you should go check it out, www.escevents.com. Cassie still runs that over there. You can also hear more about the first annual ESC conference that was back in April of 2024 on previous episodes. I will link those in the show notes. Let's fast forward to the Sand in My Boots Music Festival when those tickets actually went on air. Those tickets went on air, I want to say like end of summer 2024. In order to be in the queue to even receive a notification when the wait list was open or when the tickets were available, you had to be on the wait list. So I had signed up for the wait list as soon as I heard that the music festival was occurring. I didn't know when it was, I didn't know where it was. I just knew that if Morgan was there and he was bringing a bunch of his buddies, like that was a place that I wanted to be. So I signed up for the wait list. And for those of you who don't know, we homeschool our kids, and I do my best when we homeschool in the mornings for 2 to 3 hours. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb so that I can focus on the kids and, what the curriculum that I'm teaching them. And so while my phone was in Do Not Disturb, I got the notification that the wait list went live and the queue was now open. And so I checked my phone probably about 30 minutes after that notification went through. I think it was a text message or an email or something. Then I immediately got on to the queue to see, how far back I was. I think I waited about an hour in line before it was like my turn to purchase tickets. And so I added the two tickets to my cart and went to hit checkout. And when I hit checkout, nothing really happened. Like I couldn't progress to the next screen. It just kind of like gave me that swirling wheel of doom. And so I was like, maybe something's not working. There's like so many people on the site that's like crashing it. So I refreshed again, was able to add the two tickets to my cart, but couldn't check out. And this happened probably 4, 5, 6 times. When I finally realized, wait, this isn't working because they're sold out, I just was like, oh God, I missed my chance. And so I was like, checking their social media, and lo and behold, they sold out of 40,000 tickets to the Sand in My Boots Music Festival within 2 hours of going live. And so there was an opportunity to put your name on like a second wait list. So if you didn't get tickets the first go round, if someone was like, I guess, dropped out, or if they opened up more tickets, you could add your name to this list. So went ahead and did that. And the caveat there was that you had to put your credit card number in. And if you got off the wait list, it automatically charged your credit card. So I was like, what are the chances that we'll actually get tickets? Like, I'm sure we're probably pretty far down in line. Just kind of rationalizing the what seemed to be a little bit of a impulse purchase. It was, but it wasn't, an impulse purchase in my mind. Lo and behold, I guess it was probably right around Christmas. Like we were buying Christmas presents and we moved in December. Like we had a lot of expenses at the time. And then all of a sudden I get this notification, ding, your card has been charged for Sand in My Boots Music Festival tickets. I was like, oh, how am I going to explain this to Caleb? And admittedly, he was not super happy at first, but now that the Sand in My Boots Music Festival is just 2 weeks away, he has already downloaded the app and created his schedule for the festival. So I'm pretty sure he's okay with it now. All of that to say, that's a little bit of background about I say my relationship with Morgan. Never met the man, obviously. Sort of just like the way he's impacted our lives. Let's dive into how in the world this man built a brand that could sell out 40,000 plus tickets to his inaugural Sand in My Boots music festival. We're going to cover a little bit about his backstory, a little bit about how he does things differently than the majority of people in his industry, and basically what we can learn from it and then apply to our small businesses. This is one of my favorite things to do. So let's jump right in. So Morgan Wallen's from a small town in eastern Tennessee. If you listen to any of his music, you will already know that. He gained attention initially from the show The Voice. He was on The Voice in 2014. He did not win The Voice by any means, but he was on The Voice. He's kind of known in the industry for blending a couple of different genres. He is technically a country music artist, but he does bring in a lot of like rock, pop, and even a little bit of rap. He does a couple of different collaborations with other rap or hip hop artists. Big X the Plug. I'm having trouble thinking of the guy that he sings with Whiskey Whiskey with. He collaborates with quite a few people, kind of brings in the mix of their styles as well. If you don't know some of Morgan Wallen's greatest hits, some of them from the very early days are Whiskey Glasses, Talkin' Tennessee. One of my all-time favorite songs by Morgan Wallen is from one of his very first album. It's called Chasing You. A couple of others are Seven Summers, Last Night. That's one of the more recent ones from his last album. And then, of course, his collaboration with Post Malone, I Had Some Help. That is the song of the summer, this summer. So, yes, he has an amazing discography lineup record, for lack of a better word. And those albums that he has done, the first one, I think he only had like 12 songs on the first album, but the thing that really, really differentiates him was that the previous two albums were both double albums. So on Dangerous, his album that he released in 2020, which is the one that helped my sons get to sleep so many times, that actually had 30 tracks on it, 30. The second one that he released that was a double album was One Thing at a Time, and that was released in 2023, and that had 36 tracks on it. He is set to release his fourth album on May 16th, which is the first day of the music festival. Keep that in mind for later on, it'll be important. And that, I believe, has 37 tracks on it. 37. So in the three albums that he has dropped, 30, 60, 90 plus 13, 103. 103 songs on three albums alone. And that's not even all of the albums that he's put out. So, like I said, he does things differently than the remainder of the country music world. He just kind of treads his own path. And that's one of what I would say is one of his UVPs, is that he is able to put out the vast amount of music that he does. And instead of holding back those tracks or sifting through them to pick what he might think are the best top 12 to put on an album, he puts it all out to the world. And I absolutely love that because it feels like I know him better. It feels like he's not hiding behind this semblance of perfectionism. He gives us it all. So that's one thing that I really love about Morgan Wallen. Overall, just the more music that he puts out, the more opportunities he's giving his fans to be able to identify and relate to him. And so the more music means more moments, and more moments means more ways for fans to connect to his brand overall. And I think that he has created a really strong brand in that, but has still separated it from his personal life, right? He gives glimpses into his personal life. He had a fiance with whom he had his son with back in 2020. And I think that might be another reason that I kind of just identify with him. He had his son, I believe, in the summer of 2020. And then, like I said, we had Jackson in fall of 2020. So it's like we were coming into, we had already been parents for 2 years, but we had our sons at the same time, and it just felt like we were kind of walking the same path. As he's writing songs now about his son, like it's giving me an opportunity and many other people an opportunity to really identify and relate to his music. So first, that's what I would say is his UVP, is his ability to crank out the number of hits that he cranks out. I mean, I'm not even listing off of the numerical achievements. I did pull from the internet to see like how many weeks has he been at number one. And so his Dangerous, the first double album that he put out in 2021, it was number one on the Billboard 200 for 10 straight weeks. The One Thing at a Time album that he put out in 2023, it was number one on Billboard 200 for 19 non-consecutive weeks. But overall, he's had 176 plus weeks at number one as a top country album, which is just insane. It's just a testament to his musical talent, yes, but also his ability to be able to speak directly to the person that he's creating the music for. Just want to keep that in mind. That's what I would describe as Morgan Wallen's UVP, is his ability to put out the immense number of hits that he can in a relatively short amount of time.
Are you feeling stuck when it comes to your branding or marketing strategy? Do you have a million ideas but no clear direction on where to start? Then it sounds like a Power Hour session would be perfect for you. This is a focused one-on-one video call designed to tackle your biggest branding or marketing challenges. Here's how it works. You schedule the call, share some of your business details and any burning questions you have ahead of time. Then during our session, we dive straight into solutions. No fluff, no generic advice, just tailored strategies that work for you and your business. Whether you're a realtor looking to stand out in a crowded market, a short-term rental owner creating a repeat guest experience, or a builder needing clarity on your messaging, the Power Hour is designed to help you walk away with actionable steps to grow your brand. Are you ready to take the guesswork out of your branding and marketing? Let's tackle it together. Visit the link in the show notes to book your Power Hour session today, and let's turn your ideas into intentional action.
Okay, so now let's take a little step back and look at Morgan Wallen's overall brand. So he has, like I said, what did I say, 106 or 7 plus another 12, so almost 120 songs on his overall discography, just like record. From those songs, he's actually created a bigger brand outside of just the songs themselves. So the first other initiative that I saw him launch was the Morgan Wallen Foundation. And the Morgan Wallen Foundation was meant to give back to his community. That Morgan Wallen Foundation no longer goes by that name. He actually changed it into More Than My Hometown Foundation, which is one of the titles of one of his songs. So that's the first way that I saw him incorporating his song titles into an overall brand that could fit into his Morgan Wallen brand as a whole. The second way that I saw him incorporate those song titles into his overall brand was when he opened This Bar in Nashville. So, This Bar is the name, again, of one of his songs. I believe it is on the Dangerous album. And This Bar in Nashville, if any of you all know country music or you've been to Nashville on Broadway, it is filled with bars owned by other country singers, Jason Aldean, Kid Rock, Riley Green, Lainey Wilson. They have everybody's got a bar. His bar is 6 stories tall, and a way that he furthered the brand is that the drinks, the signature cocktails that they serve at this bar are all named after his songs. For example, he has one that's called Ain't That Some, title of his song, that's tequila passion fruit cocktail. And then he has one named Chasin' You. Remember, that was one of my favorite songs from his very first album. That's Gin and Lavender. It's just really interesting to me how he used his discography to be able to further his brand. But I won't say that, maybe he did, but I don't think necessarily that he had that goal to set out with in the beginning when he was writing those songs. It was kind of like he reverse engineered the ways, or his team reverse engineered the ways to be able to fit those song titles into a way to impact his community and further his brand, like More Than My Hometown Foundation and This Bar. Finally, at least this is so far so much as I know and the research has gone, he then launched the Sand in My Boots Music Festival, again, named after his one of his songs, surprise, surprise. Okay, to even further this experience, at the Sand in My Boots Music Festival, that's in Gulf Shores on the beach, they have a Love Somebody Lane area. Love Somebody is the name of one of the songs on his newest album that has not yet come out. That's literally like a almost Vegas style chapel area where you can get married. Like this is a wild experience, all modeled after his song names, which I just absolutely love. When that brand is strong and that brand identity is there, then the merch, the bar itself in Nashville, the cocktails at that bar, the music festival, Love Somebody Lane, they just all feel like natural extensions that come together in this like holistic experience of the Morgan Wallen brand. So one thing that I admire about the launch strategy of Morgan Wallen is that it's almost like a carrot is dangled in front of you, and you have to keep your eye on the carrot in order to make sure that you don't miss it. It's almost the exact opposite of everything that I teach, in that I always say that in order to have a consumer that's ready to purchase from you, they have to hear from you 7 to 15 times before they're comfortable to be able to like move forward. When they first launched this bar, it was like maybe one or two posts for this bar that started to promo it. And then the same thing happened when that wait list came out about Sand in My Boots Music Festival. I only saw one or two pieces of marketing collateral for Sand in My Boots Music Festival. It was like when I saw that, I knew I had to act fast because I didn't know how big that wait list was going to be. I didn't know if I was going to be able to access that wait list, sign up again. So it's really interesting in that he has already put in the reps because of that discography that he has, because of the fact that he's put out almost 100 songs and that he's been in my brain for so long, that now that he's planting those seeds of this bar in Nashville, of Sand in My Boots Music Festival in Gulf Shores, that way he doesn't have to quite work so hard because he's already put in those reps earlier on to have those key touch points beforehand. With that being said, once I saw that Sand in My Boots Music Festival ad or the promo that was on Instagram, I immediately signed up. I didn't even know any of the other acts that were going to be there. I just knew Morgan Wallen was going to be there. And then after that, they started to kind of filter out and feed us with a little bit more information of what other musical artists were going to be there. So then he released, I guess it was right before he released the announcement of Sand in My Boots Music Festival. He released that single, I Had Some Help, with him and Post Malone. And so when he then released that Post Malone was going to be one of the other headliners, it was like, oh my goodness, I have to be there, or else I'm really going to be missing out on a one of like once in a lifetime incredible experience. With that being said, that's what led to 40,000 tickets being sold out in 2 hours. Those collaborations that he had done in the past, he was bringing them all to life. So other musical artists that are going to be there, Hardy, Ernest, Brooks and Dunn, he's been very vocal about him having like a large impact on his musical, just influence. The fact that like he has let us into a little bit of the behind the scenes, and then bringing together all of these people that he has worked with and collaborated with before so that we can see it all happen in real life is just, that's what made me so excited to be able to be there in the same space as them. Okay, transitioning to another idea that I think makes his brand intriguing, at least for me as a consumer and one of his diehard fans, is that he shares enough of his story through his lyrics to be relatable while he still maintains an extremely private life. I know Morgan Wallen's story. I know who his fiance was. I know what his son's name was. And I don't want to sound like a stalker. That's not what I mean when I say, and I use this as a contributing factor to his brand story. But it's the fact that, like, I don't know the inner workings of his life. And I don't necessarily need to know the inner workings of his life because I feel like I know who he is through the music and the lyrics that he puts out. So it's almost like his lyrics become a lifestyle. It's like certain lyrics stick out in my mind. For example, like Long Live Cowgirls is one of the songs that I don't know if he co-wrote it, but definitely it's on his album and he sang it with Ernest. Long Live Cowgirls is all over merch now. It's like almost a whole lifestyle. Ain't That Some is another example of one of his song titles being created into merch and a lifestyle. All of those songs, despite me not knowing specifics about his like the inner workings of his life, he's let all of his fans in to his head, to his feelings in the way of his lyrics. And that's the whole point of a brand, right? Is to make you feel some type of way. I have given that speech, that talk, that definition time and time again that a brand is not what you sell, but it's how you make people feel with your business. And so the emotion tied to it, knowing that his lyrics made me feel some type of way. Maybe that's just because I had like the crazy hormones of postpartum, but I can confidently say that with the his ability to sell out 40,000 tickets in 2 hours to his music festival that he's never put on before, he makes a lot of people feel some type of way with just the lyrics that he has created and written. Another thing that I love about Morgan Wallen's brand is that he started on The Voice in 2014. He did not release his first double album until 2021. So his first album came out in 2018. That's about 4 years after he was on The Voice, which in and of itself is a long time to be working at something without releasing an album. But then the one that quote unquote like made him big was not until 7 years after he was on The Voice. So that to me shows that he's not just chasing the quick wins. He's not just trying to hit headlines. Like he releases an album once, maybe every 3 years. So he's with those 30 plus songs per album, he's releasing an album that is able to be relatable for a long amount of time, but also from the beginning of his first album in 2018 to the one that he's about to release now, that he has like pre-released, I think like 7 singles before he even releases the full album. He is allowing us a glimpse into his maturity, into his like coming of age story. And I think that's why it's so relevant for so many people that are in my age demographic, my generation, because we've grown up with him. And of course, we're not in the spotlight like he is, but there are ways, and it's very similar to Taylor Swift. Like she's my same age, and she has a little bit longer of a runway because she started her music career at 16, but it's just he's here for the long time, not necessarily just for the good time. And I love that about him. In a recent interview that he had with Theo Vaughn, not sure if you guys know him, but that guy's hilarious and quirky. So anytime he interviewed Morgan Wallen, I think back in 2020. And so this is the first time that he's interviewed him since then. And it was before the release, like obviously before the release of this upcoming album. And it was interesting to see the reactions to Theo Vaughn's questions because so in his last album he had a little bit heavier of a like rapper hip hop vibe to it, and I would still say again that he's a country artist, but there were some sort of like more fast-paced, edgier songs for the country genre. And so he was like, you know what? I was kind of just over that phase in my career, and I figured if I was over that phase in my career, probably my fans were too. So I'm just kind of like going where the motion takes me, where the inspiration takes me. So like that's what I love about him is that he's not just about what's going to sell. He's just about like what makes sense at the time. And so that's one thing that I think will continue to keep him relevant as he ages and matures. All of that to say, like I said, I promise you, I will bring it back to how you can apply everything that Morgan Wallen has done in his multi-million-dollar brand to your small business. So, first, I want to say that again, the definition of branding is how your brand makes people feel. And your brand is more than just your product or service. So, in this case, Morgan's product is his music, and his music at face value it can stand alone, but the way that I feel about it is what makes it significant, what makes it emotional, what makes it relevant and applicable and impactful to me. So yes, while you may provide a service for someone, that service in and of itself is not necessarily where the value is. The value is how you make them feel. If you have some sort of brand ecosystem, right? So if you have an entry offer at the top of your funnel, in order to get your consumers down towards the bottom of the funnel, which is those higher ticket offers, then those segues, those transitions from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel, they have to make sense. The brand extensions have to make sense. Morgan Wallen's This Bar in Nashville, with all of his song titled cocktails, would not be nearly as successful or draw people in nearly as well or efficiently as they do if that brand extension didn't make sense. Next up is that consistency matters. He has been at this music making industry since 2014. He's put in 11 years and, like I said, quite a few reps before he started to announce his brand extensions like This Bar and Sand in My Boots Music Festival. So, consistency is key when you are building a brand. And although I'm speaking not only to you all, but also to myself in this moment, building a brand can feel really lonely at the beginning. It can feel like you're not getting a lot of feedback, much like I'm sure Morgan Wallen didn't get a ton of feedback from the voice appearance that he made in 2014, but he stayed consistent with it. He put in the reps, and that's what I would encourage you to do as well, is continue to put in the reps so that those touch points across all of your marketing collateral, across your social media, your website, your blog, your email marketing, all of that will then come to fruition and pay dividends once you stay consistent with it and you continue to keep that brand messaging cohesive. So, the key takeaway: Morgan Wallen didn't accidentally sell out the Sand in My Boots Music Festival. He put in a lot of work prior to that, including his work back in 2018 with his very first album, all the way to his what will be third double album that drops on May 16th. I absolutely cannot wait to bring back some stories from the Sand in My Boots Music Festival. I plan on being able to remember this more than I remember the concert back in summer of last year. But there will be lots of photos and videos as proof, and I will report back on how amazing Post Malone is live in concert, as well as how amazing Morgan Wallen remains to be live in concert. So thank you so much for hanging out with me and doing this brand breakdown of Morgan Wallen and his entire backstory and brand. If you want more branding breakdowns like this, hit subscribe and tune in, because these are one of my favorite types of episodes to do. And I have actually a Post Malone brand breakdown, Taylor Swift brand breakdown, Chobani brand breakdown, all in previous episodes. So thank you again for listening, and here's to being the best in your brand and your market. Until next week, y'all.
You just completed another episode of the Brand and Market Podcast. If you found this helpful, please rate, review, and subscribe to help others find this show and so that you never miss an episode. Don't forget to take a look at the show notes for all the resources mentioned today. See you next Wednesday, and as always, I'm here cheering you on as you build your dream brand and business.